Welcome to another G4 guitar theory lesson. In this lesson we're going to cover intervals. What is an interval? An interval is the distance between two notes. As you know, there are only 7 alphabetic letters, A, B, D, C, E, F, G, and what we're doing here is we're measuring the distance just in alphabetic terms between each of those letters. So let's just go through here and define. The size of an interval is determined by the distance in alphabetic letters between two notes. We regard the first note or the first letter as the first. So if A is the first, then B will be the second, C will be the third. Note that when we play two notes of the same pitch, in this case we call it unison. When we play the first note with the 8th note, it's called an octave. So let's have a look at how that works. Okay, so here are the alphabetic letters, A, B, C, F, G plus A, B, C again. So if we want to work out what a second is from any note, then we start with the first note, whatever it is. So in this case, let's just have a look at the A note. So the first note there is A. So what we want to do is work out a second from an A. Very simple, it's just the very next note. So I can, A to B, so I'll draw a little line here just so that we can see how this works. So there, A to B, that's a second. Now I can take that guy there and I can move him anywhere. So if I go to the C, then the second of a C is D. It's just the next alphabetic letter. It's very, very simple. It's not at all complicated. Now, if I want to work out what a third is, then what I need to do is actually go to the skip one note. So I go from the A to the C. So in this case, I'm going A to the C there, and that gives me a third interval. So again, you can work out the interval from any note. So if you want to work out what a third from D is, you can see it's an F, just skipping the E. So going from the G here, you skipping the A and going straight to the B. Now that works right across. It's very simple. I'll just sort of take it up to a few other examples here. We have, say, the 6th note here. So what we're going to do is this time we're going to work out an interval from as a 6th, and we're going A, B, C, D, E, F will give you the 6th. So there we go. So again, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, and F is 6. Where confusion can happen is when you count the B as the first note, but always start with the note you're on. That's always number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, using the same idea, you can work out a 6th from any of those notes. If you want to know what a 6th of D is, it's a B. And these are very important because when you start working with chord progressions and scales and intervals and a harmony, this is the kind of thing that you'll be talking about. You'll be talking in intervals. Someone might say to you, what's a 6th from D? Or can you sing a 6th from D? Or can you play the 6th chord in the key of D? This way you'll understand what this all means. So intervals are very important. Now this is just talking about the size of the interval. So what we want to do now is we want to have a look at the quality of the interval. Before I sort of go on there's an exercise here that you can do, which is where you can write in each of the intervals on there, and this comes from our PDF, and that will give you some practice in working out the intervals, and then just get your teacher to check to see that your answers are correct. Okay, so interval types. What's an interval type? There are 5 types of intervals: major, minor, augmented, diminished, and perfect. Major and minor intervals apply to seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Perfect, augmented, and diminished intervals apply to fourths, fifths, and octaves. So what we'll do is we'll try and get a bit of an idea how this works. This is a little bit more complicated compared to interval size. So let's have a look here. Each interval is determined, the size of the interval is determined by how many semitones there are, or as guitarist, how many frets that you will move up. So what we're going to do is, again, we'll start with A, and here on the 5th string here you can see there is an A note. So let me draw a little circle there around the A just so you can see where I'm at. So that's the A. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out some different types of intervals. Now if we know A to B is what we call a second, we worked that out already. What we want to do is have a look at the kind of seconds there are. If you come down here, you can see there's a minor second and a major second. So we have 2 types of seconds, a minor second and a major second. So the minor second is determined by 1 semitone. So the red along there, the red numbers are the semitones or the frets on the guitar. So if we only go one fret, we actually come to this one here, which is called A sharp or B flat. If you have a look there, you can see those guys there. So A sharp and B flat. So to be a minor second, it only goes one semitone. So, but to be called a second, and this is where it can get confusing, it has to be called a B something. It can't be called an A sharp. An A sharp is not a second, and this is the grammatics of it, music. So you have to remember that a second is always going to be a B from the A. So it's always the next alphabetic letter. So this will be called a minor second and going to the B flat. Now, if we go down here and have a look at a major second, we've got two semitones. So in this case, we're going to go two semitones across, or two frets on the guitar. So we're going to go from the A across to the B here. So that there is what we call a major second because it's gone two semitones. Hope that makes sense. It is a little bit confusing when you first start, but you just have to keep your eye on the number of semitones or frets that you will move along. So let's have another example just to try and bring this together. We're going to look here at thirds. We've got two kinds of thirds, a major third and a minor third. I'm just going to bring that down there so you can see that's a minor second, and the other one is the major second going to the B. Now, so we want to work out a minor third and a major third. So if we come down here and you have a look at the minor third, it says it's three semitones. But remember, firstly, you've got to work out what a third is. A third from A will be C, because A to B is a second, A to C is the third. So it's got to be a C. It can be a C sharp or a C, but it can't be a B. It can't be a D or an E or whatever. It has to be a C of some description. So to work out where we've got a C here and a C sharp, we've got two kinds of thirds here. One's the minor third and the other's the major third. So you can see down here where we've got the minor third, three semitones, and the major third, four semitones, then we can work out which is which. So going one semitone, I'm just going to draw this so you can see it as I do it. So one semitone, two semitones, three semitones, that then gives you a minor third. So A to C is a minor third. If we then go to the fourth semitone, which is that one there, to the C sharp, then that's our major third. It can't be called D flat, it's got to be A to C sharp. Now, to the ear, it makes no difference at all, but when we're talking about music and talking in terms of what it should be called, the grammatics, if you like, of music, it's very important to call it the right thing. So that's a third, major third, minor third. Now, you can continue along here, and you can see that all the red numbers indicate the interval size or the interval type. So what we want to do is just look at one more thing which can be a little bit confusing, and that's looking at the diminished fourth here, and things where we've got two intervals that have the same name. So you can see down here the major third has four semitones and the diminished fourth has four semitones. So they're both exactly the same note. So major third, diminished fourth. So this interval down here where we went four semitones and got the C sharp, that's the major third interval. But when we go from A and call it a D flat, its actual name is a diminished fourth because the D is the fourth. So it's got two names. It can be a major third or it can be a diminished fourth, depending on how you're looking at it. Now, if that's really confused you, then you really need to have a chat to your teacher because it is a difficult concept sometimes to get. It's simply there are two names. It's like you've got a first name and a last name. Both names are you, except depending on the situation, they might call you Mr. or Mrs. such and such, or Ms., or they might call you by your first name. Either way, it's still you, and that's the same here. This note here, this interval, the sound to our ear is the same, but the name that it's called will vary. Okay, so there's an exercise to do down here, and that's to write the number of semitones for the following intervals. Of course, you can easily look up here at the answer, but try and work it out. Try and memorize these intervals. Get to know what they are and the different types of intervals. So just to quickly wrap up, intervals are the distance between two notes. You have two conditions to consider, the size and the type. Always start with the size, and I'll tell you in alphabetic letters how many the distance between the two notes, and then work out how many semitones or frets on the guitar to determine what kind of interval it is, the type of interval. Thank you, and as always, if you've got any questions, please join our student group and post your questions on our Facebook student group. Thanks, guys.